Hey guys, Joel Hughes here from Glass Mountains, your remote WordPress experts. Now in this Team Talk video, we're going to talk about when to use WordPress and when not to use WordPress. Now we are a WordPress specialist agency and I'd say about 95% of the projects are WordPress. However, there are occasions when other platforms and other choices are appropriate. In this short video, I'll talk about some of the scenarios when WordPress is a good choice and some scenarios where it isn't. Thanks for watching. You look a lot taller than me there. I don't like that. I'm gonna. That's better. We've both gone out of frame now. We're going to be here all day if that carries on, you know. Okay, so I'm joined with Mr. Lumley again. How are you today, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Whiling the days away till we can all go back out.
I do like your jumper. I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. It's a ASOS special, I believe.
Good. I like it, mate. It suits you.
Thank you.
And talking of suitability...
I like your shirt as well, by the way. That suits you.
Yes, although I do feel I might have spread a little and you're kind enough not to mention that. We were talking about suitability until we drifted off into something X-rated. And suitability in this case is that I wanted to chat about WordPress and which projects it fits well for and which it doesn't. So as folks may know, we tend to specialize. I've got used to saying to people, 95% of the time we do WordPress projects. We do move outside that when needed. As an aside, I think we tend to do a lot of WordPress ones because people come to us for a marketing website, and WordPress is very good for that. But let's start off with discussing where WordPress is a good fit.
Yeah.
That was it. That's your answer.
There definitely are places where it's a good fit. We all know that. Yeah, your typical marketing site, it does a great job on. Just the range of plugins available that kind of default all the things like open graph tags, search engine optimization, and social sharing and so on, all those sorts of things that take time and effort. And going back 5 years plus, we all used to be doing them as little extra jobs for clients, post sites going live and things like that. We can just lump in from the start with WordPress. Because we have a tried and tested set of plugins we use on all our projects. So it's a great fit for that type of thing. And I think as well that increasingly the bigger it gets, the more familiarity is a factor. So marketing managers, people that are commissioning work, they know WordPress, they're familiar with it. So they don't have a learning curve there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to say. So many clients are already familiar with it and they understand some of the abilities of logging in and looking after things, that you're already ahead of the curve. The problem is sometimes it's when they're forewarned with using WordPress, but it's not always the best fit for a particular problem.
Yeah, we certainly see those as well, where WordPress's reputation does no one any favors and people come in thinking they want a WordPress site, as you're saying, and it isn't always the best thing.
Yeah, because I think some people out of the box think WordPress is going to be cheap. There's going to be a plugin or there's going to be a theme available to it. And I think that mentality is fine when clients understand that if you're going to buy pre-packaged designs or pre-packaged functionality, you're going to have to play to the strengths of how that functionality works. It's not going to be an exact fit for your requirements, but if you can adapt to that functionality, then you can realize the cost savings of using that. Where it can go wrong is, of course, where you're expecting it to fit exactly.
If you then move on to your self-hosted WordPress sites, which is very much what we do, you've then got two tiers within that as well, really. As you were just alluding to, you've got your sort of installing stuff and making the best of it to keep costs down, and you've got your kind of going fully bespoke route, and really everything in between as well, haven't you? Yeah,
very much. On the theme side, we would tend to do, I say 95% of the projects we do are WordPress, and within that, 95% of those are bespoke themes, because people come to us, they are marketing websites, so they've got a brand. They don't really want to have to adapt to fit how a theme works, and we like to have the flexibility to create something which is bespoke to them. On the functionality side, a lot of these websites, they might have an events calendar or they might have forms and stuff, and WordPress can easily handle that. I think on the occasions we'll use e-commerce. It'll be I think WooCommerce is the route that we normally take there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the de facto leader now. It's owned by Automatic and essentially is a sort of very much a first class citizen in the ecosystem these days.
Yeah. Sorry, you said they bought it, didn't they? Automatic, they bought.
Yeah, years ago I think. So there used to be GigoShop. I think WooCommerce dates way back to being a fork of GigoShop, and I think there's lots of flame wars about that if you delve into the archives on the internet. There was WP e-commerce as well, which I know we've used sort of going back 7 or 8 years for a few projects.
Yeah.
No longer got anything live on. So there certainly have been other players in the space, but no longer.
Yeah, fine. I think it gets interesting when we start to push that boundary of where the WordPress is a good fit or bespoke might be another route. A project which comes to mind is one which we worked on in terms of that Google Drive integration. Can you remember that one?
Yeah, I can remember that one from a year or so ago. That was, that very much wasn't a great fit for WordPress. So typically, sort of to give everyone else some insight, Joel and I will sort of flesh out the requirements for a project and make a call fairly early on whether it's WordPress or not, and if it's not, whether indeed it's right for Glass Mountains. This particular one, so I freelance away from Glass Mountains as well and do a lot of Laravel and Symfony development. So this particular one suited Laravel quite well, and we were able to deliver it far more cost effectively using Laravel and some Laravel add-ons than we were with WordPress.
I certainly remember that project. The client was pushing with WordPress from the early, so a lot of the project was the initial stages were about working out here's an option if you use WordPress, and explain to them the constraints of that option. Because I think there was Google Drive integration, so you can get a plugin to do Google Drive, and that plugin will do X. And then they wanted to do some sort of file explorer. Well, you can glue that plugin to that plugin, and then the intersection of how that plugins work. That will work in a certain way, and that, I think it's really important to convey that very early to a client, because they can easily get hoodwinked thinking this plugin is going to solve all their needs. Well, it will solve a lot of their needs, but it will come with baggage, which is why we offered them the other option, saying, okay, go bespoke within the Laravel framework, and then all bets are off, and we can make it much more unique to their requirements. But it's giving the client the option there, I think, is important, rather than just sort of them thinking the plugin's going to work, because I think it's only going to be a nasty surprise then, because it'll get you halfway there, 3/4 of the way there, but it might not get you all the way there. It's certainly on the more advanced kind of functionalities, I think.
Because we were talking about it internally as if it was a WordPress project for a long time before we actually switched over. Like, we were always considering both, but it wasn't until the kind of scope creeped out of it that we changed our minds about what was the kind of our kind of recommendation, didn't we?
And that was the good call to make, because you don't want to just plow too far ahead of it on a WordPress project when you realize it's just not going to, the client isn't going to be able to compromise, which is why I'm always very, very careful with sounding out clients with, as soon as you get to more advanced functionality, sort of, how are you willing to compromise with what this off the shelf plugins are going to do? Because whilst you and the guys have got the skills to be able to then modify plugins to make it do whatever the client wants to do, well, you don't really want to go that route, because you can't update the plugins then, and you've created a very brittle framework for them, haven't you?
Yeah, or potentially if you've integrated and if it's a well-written plugin and it's got hooks and filters, which are WordPress, like ways within a WordPress code base that you can kind of interact with code from outside it. If it's got good hooks and filters within the plugin and you've managed to modify and do what you need without touching the plugin, it can still be challenging to apply updates, because the plugin changes. You've got code that works quite intricately with that plugin. It potentially breaks. To borrow your word, it's brittle. So we just generally find, I certainly find that when you've got these kind of collections of plugins that have been sort of loosely tied together, there's always, the plugins always do more than you need, or almost always do. So you end up having to kind of either hide things away or sort of spend time allowing for things that aren't really part of your requirements, but are just going to look, don't look great if you leave them, and you don't get any of that with the a bespoke build either. So I think the longer the life cycle of your project, the more those factors add up. If you're doing adding features in, upgrading parts of the project, all that type of stuff, each time the complexity you've got with a big sort of stack of WordPress plugins and the associated headaches that go with are costing more money than managing a bespoke system would. There's obviously exceptions for this, and it's a very overgeneralized statement, but certainly holds true in a lot of cases I've seen.
So another complex project we can think of, especially one which uses a very, very complex plugin, is one of our clients is John Loomer, and John is a prolific blogger on the whole Facebook ad side, and he does a lot of that on the johnloomer.com side. And then he has another website called Power Hitters Club, which is his members only site. That site links to a CRM called Infusionsoft. So we've got this block Power Hitters Club site written in as WordPress. You've got Infusionsoft, which is the CRM. So people buy into his training programs. Infusionsoft handles all the payment. Infusionsoft handles a lot of the things like the emails to the clients. But then you need to have this bridge between Power Hitters Club and Infusionsoft, and that comes through a specialist plugin called Memberium. And Ben, would I be right in describing that as that's one of the complex plugins which it takes over the kind of website really, so it's doing a highly, highly specialist job.
Yeah, it's running sort of hand in hand with the whole website. So it completely replaces WordPress's login system, or sort of straddles on top of it, and uses that to manage content permissions. So you can kind of say that people with this membership or this subscription can access this piece of content, they can't access that. And John uses that to manage and administer the various courses that he runs.
That's right, because he uses Infusionsoft to set all the levels of the membership, and then depending on what tags are applied on Infusionsoft, that then impacts what content they can see on Power Hitters Club, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's that's definitely an example of something where it's a relatively complicated piece of functionality. There's a lot going on there. It's probably something that if we were to spec ourselves, we would feel didn't really belong in WordPress. But these guys they've built this as a product, they sell it, so we've had to pay to use the plugin, or John has. They've clearly felt that WordPress is the place to do that because of the marketing opportunities it gives them. And, that's great, that works for them. For us, if we were developing it as a one-off, I feel that we would have likely not chosen to go down the WordPress route. But the fact of the matter is the plugin is so good and gets you 99% of the way there, it does actually then make sense to use it. Yeah,
very much. I think picking up on your point that if it hadn't been in place and John had come to us, we would have then done that usual thing where we gave two options. We'd have had a look online. Is there such a bridge plugin between WordPress and Infusionsoft? Great, yeah. There's this thing called Imperium. Okay, John, are you happy with the constraints and playing to the strengths of what that gives you? Because if you aren't, then we're going to have to go the bespoke route.
Yeah, I think that's.
I just certainly from a dealing with clients and sort of specing projects point of view, I find that such a productive way to go. Sort of is to get clients looking at the plugins early so that they can make the choice on it. I mean, what we tend to do, of course, with the plugins, like sort of, if clients come to us with the plugin, we all sort of check it out. Like, is this plugin updated? Has it been used recently? Does it look like a good quality plugin? Because I mean, off the top of my head, I think we've been involved in some projects before. There was it's like a multi-site marketing one. What was the
yeah. We were using a plugin called, I don't know if we're meant to name plugins, we're going to say bad things about.
Well, those were, and in fairness to those plugins, they were cutting edge ones. They were trying to do a lot of functionality. There was a lot of rolling releases coming out with it. But I think
and it was a very early stage plugin, wasn't it? It was evolving very rapidly as we were using it. But yeah, that caused no end of problems with things not being quite as they should be, and updates breaking stuff and all that sort of stuff. Another point I sort of always try and keep in mind as well is that as great as WordPress is, I think we at Glass Mountains as a whole do see sites periodically where customers just don't use WordPress. They don't change their content. And at that point, you have to question whether WordPress was the right option or not. So I sort of always try and keep an open mind to using some of the static site generators. So things like Jekyll, Gatsby, Hugo, to build out, give you the benefits of templating, theming, whatever, your given platform calls it. And some sort of plugin ecosystem. I mean, Gatsby has a pretty good plugin ecosystem. You can still, get good sitemaps, blog type content going with all the sort of cross-referencing and so on. And they can potentially talk to APIs as well. So you can still do a lot of things with these sites. But you don't have the hassles of hosting and managing a WordPress site that, go through the lifetime of your project. So I think there's space there as well to just question, whether WordPress is right.
So with those kind of projects you mentioned then, how would you do the content editing? You've got other...
I think that's a key factor for me. It's when you see a site and can see that the client, it's when people come in with sites to us, don't you, and want to rebuild, and you can see they haven't changed it since the last time it was looked at by someone in the industry. So they've basically paid to have a WordPress theme developed, and they've either taken a security risk by not keeping it up to date, or they've paid some cost to keep it up to date, and they've never used the admin system to change anything. So you think, what was the point? If they're using us to change it, we can do it just as easily with Jekyll or Gatsby, whatever tool we're using.
So it's an important point then to end with, really, that with WordPress, you got to be careful. You don't want to only own a hammer, because basically every problem you see then looks like a nail. It's best to sort of evaluate that problem from day one and then choose the right tool. Did you like that? Do you think that was a good way of describing it?
I think that's a good analogy. Yes, don't only have a hammer.
Right, don't forget that. What have we got coming up on the 24th of April, Ben? Tell me, remember this.
We've got a webinar we're going to run where we're going to talk about what WordPress can do for your business.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Tricks and tips for people to, they look after a WordPress site. So a few little things for them to think of in terms of how they're looking after the site, or areas which they can develop, or things that they can think of. And that's it.